President Trump took some serious shots at Congressman Thomas Massie yesterday.
Massie has been critical of the Republicans' big, beautiful bill that they're trying to pass in Congress.
Now, a reporter asked Trump about his thoughts on Massie's criticism.
Do you think that Thomas Massie is correct in saying that this is adding Biden?
No, I don't think Thomas Massie understands government. I think he's a grandstander, frankly. He'll probably vote. We don't even talk to him much. I think he should be voted out of office. And I just don't think he understands government. If you ask him a couple of questions, he never gives you an answer. He just says, I'm a no. He thinks he's going to get publicity, and you have that.
The comment, however, didn't seem to faze Massie. Let's listen.
He said my hair is better than Rand
But what did you
Paul's.
make of him calling you a grandstander in there?
It's fine. It's
What
fine.
about his...
All I
he said
heard
this
was
twice.
my hair is
No,
better than
no,
Rand
he
Paul's.
said this
Thank
twice.
you.
Massie says the big, beautiful bill would add $20 trillion of federal debt over 10 years and would increase the price of our current debt. The congressman also took to X to ask for campaign contributions and said Trump threatened him.
Trump reportedly told House Republicans not to F with Medicare. He also appears fed up at the House Republicans trying to increase SALT deductions, which is a federal deduction for state and local taxes. Republicans can only afford to lose 3 votes in the House to pass this entire bill.
So what is happening here is that Thomas Massie, who's a very principled, limited government individual, actually wants to cut government spending, and no one else does. And that's the whole story. That's not surprising. Thomas Massie has wanted to cut government spending for as long as he's been in Congress. He's one of like 2 or 3 people who actually mean it. When they say we're going to cut government spending, then they actually vote to do just that. Everyone else, and I'm calling out every other Republican, virtually every other, it's like him, Rand Paul, and a couple others who actually want it, maybe like Chip Roy, who actually want to do it. Everyone else falls in line when the leader says, now's not the time to cut the spending. We'll save the hard work for later. We'll get to it, though. We'll do it later, for sure. We're going to totally do it later. And then they kick the can down the road and they never get to it. So, I agree with Massie, but our voters, we're not running for anything. Our viewers already know that I'm of his inclinations.
Well, he's a traditional fiscal conservative,
Yeah.
which is appropriate to stick to what you have been running and campaigning and standing on for years, despite who's in office, right? Your job is to represent the constituents in the districts that you go home and report to. These people voted you in office. They weren't ordained and knighted into positions. And so the fact that Trump doesn't have the opportunity to run again, there was this level of fear that no longer exists because, like Massie, people understand that you can't really do much to me after this next 3 years, but the voters can. They can get me out of office. And I think that's where your priority should always lie. I think with things like the fiscal conservatism and then also the Medicaid portion, this big, beautiful bill is completely unrealistic, throwing the whole kitchen sink inside of one bill in order to protect these tax cuts. And I know that Trump is more worried about his legacy than actual Americans, because if he doesn't pass these tax cuts, what happens? The approval rating continues to go down, the economy continues to be in disarray, and people now not only look at Trump because of these tariffs and how they're actually going to be affecting them all summer, but then also the wealthy people and people that will benefit from these tax cuts are also looking at Trump like, wait, aren't you the business government leader? Aren't you the savvy businessman that was going to get us out of this economy that Biden, quote unquote, had us in or put us in? And so I think this all relies on his legacy, and it's a litmus test for how well the Republican Party will stick together in lockstep and finally maybe step away from that narrative and just do things that are appropriate for the people they represent.
Yeah, Massie is unfazed because he's gotten lots of criticism for his various stances, which, again, he says, and I agree with him because I happen to agree with most things he thinks, are perfectly consistent. He got criticized by AIPAC last time around, the pro-Israel lobbying group, for he supports, obviously, Israel's right to fight against terrorism, but he doesn't want to necessarily give money to Israel or any other foreign government. He thinks American tax dollars should be spent at home. So he got, AIPAC spent some money against him. Trump attacked him, and he still won. He won with 75% of the vote.
Yeah, but this is not The Apprentice. Trump can't just threaten and say you're
gonna,
fired to everyone that disagrees
popular
with
in
him.
his district.
Right.
Because I think his voters know, Massie's voters know that he's not like some never Trump, Adam Kinzinger or whatever type person who's just against everything Trump does. Rand Paul said the same thing. We interviewed Rand Paul on the show, And I said, Senator, Trump, they're saying you're a Trump hater. And he's like, I don't hate Trump at all. I play golf with Trump. I like Trump. I feel affection for the president. I just disagree with him on some things. Failing to control the deficit spending, the tariffs, the economic policy, those are those things. And I would say to Trump, part of if you're thinking about your legacy,
Which he is.
Republicans have been voted into power time and time again because the voters care about the budget deficit. So you have to do both spending cuts I would say on the entitlement side for sure. I agree with them doing that. I know it's not politically popular, and we're going to have on Representative Torres today to discuss that. But you also have to cut defense spending and on all sorts of other things. You have to cut it all because we are trillions in debt. And after this bill, if it passes, if it becomes law, we're going to be even more in debt. And it's very frustrating to me that more Republicans don't acknowledge that. Well, they'll acknowledge it and say, well, that's what we have to do now, and then we'll do a better job in the future. But right now, you control every branch of government. The Republican Party has as much power right now as basically it's ever had in my lifetime, barring the immediate, right after 2004 when Bush was at the height of his power. Other than that, the Republican Party has as much power as it's ever had in my lifetime. They should use this moment to actually pass legislation that reflects conservative libertarian principles. If they don't do it, they're never going to do it.
But if they cut certain things like Medicare, which I know we're going to talk about later, that directly is an issue for Republican voters. There are several Republicans that represent districts where there's a high rate of people who use these government programs. And so these are the same people that voted for President Trump. So he's going to be, you can either, cut your nose to spite your face, like you're going to be in it for the long haul with these people. And so either you have a presidency with a Democratic-controlled Congress, if you cut Medicaid, and if you mess with any government programs just because you're saying that people are abusing them and the abuse is not even rampant, or you can figure out a happy medium like Congress is supposed to do to figure out how to represent all Americans and not just what you think is Republican Americans that want a tax cut. So, there's a lot to discuss here. Up next, Bernie Sanders presses CVS not to give in to Trump's attacks on a free press.